Fitz of riding.
Hey there, Scribbles and Scratches. Welcome to the Fitz of Writing. I am your host this episode, R.M. Johnson, and as always, for my creative edification as well as your entertainment, we bring yet another sacrifice to that most wicked altar we call the internet. And if you find our sacrifice satisfying, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all of our platforms. This week, I'm talking with Derrick Hall. He is a bit of a prolific writer in his own right. He's got several titles under his name. Several titles under his name. And I believe he's a prior guest on the show. So let me go ahead and shut up so we can start talking about the things that he's got going on, see if we can get him to spill any of his juicy secrets. Welcome back to the show, Derrick. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. This is your and I first time talking. Last time we talked to Sean. So I'm going to kind of treat this as though we don't know each other, because we don't. So you want to give me a little bit of a kind of a Kickstarter on who you are and how you got into writing? You want to tell us where your story begins?
Oh gosh, it started with D&D. I was DMing a homebrew game for some friends and started building a world and NPCs and characters, and I got too attached to it. I didn't want to turn my little murder hobos loose on it and turned it into a book instead. So it was going to be one book only, just to prove to myself that I could. And now I'm a million words and 10 books deep and still going. So.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So I think I did do like a little bit of cursory research before I wrote my notes and everything. Last time you were talking to Sean, you said you kind of started writing it as a means to kind of put your tabletop world like basically on the page in perspective to see if
Yep.
almost kind of like a lore keeper, if I understood it right.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, that's kind of how it started. I had a bunch of notes and some little scribbled up scenes and descriptions of different places and things like that. And yeah, it kept growing, and the world building is really what got me into DMing for D&D, and then it snowballed and got to a point where, like I said, I didn't want to turn my players loose on it. I was too attached. So I'm just like, yeah, scrap that. We'll turn that into something different and come up with something for them. So.
And so is that the Crimson Prophecy that you ended up creating?
It is. That world became Qetran, which is the world that the Crimson Prophecy series is set in. And like some of the NPCs and stuff I had, they got different names and got worked into the story. And the main character that I have, Nara, was an NPC. My villain was an NPC. Several of the characters were various, side quests and things like that. But they all kind of got snowballed into the main story as it went.
And so and then from that, you've also kind of branched off into other things. I know you mentioned a novella that you wrote called 10 Levels Down, right?
Yeah.
And you wrote that specifically for the Ink Fort Derby, I believe you said?
Yeah, Inkfort Publishing does a writer's derby every summer, or I think it ends up being about 6 months. It's usually about May to September, somewhere in there. But they give you a cover, a title, and a pen name, and you have to write a book, and then it goes through betas and edits, and then publishes, and whoever has the highest sales at the end of a set period just sort of gets bragging rights, I guess. But it's more of an exercise in doing something from scratch, basically off of just a prompt. So.
Well, I definitely want to get into that a little bit because I've never done those.
Yeah.
But
it's fun.
I also know that you've written or you continue to write more on this. It's a series called the Writer's Workshop. Is that something that's continuing, or have you like maxed out on your series of it?
TBD. It may or may not continue. It just depends on what I've got on my plate.
All right. Well, to kind of bring us back to it's Qetran, right?
Ketron.
Qetran. It's gonna take me a second. Qetran. To the Qetran series. Do you want to give us a quick elevator pitch about that series? If you want to start like book one, and that's fine.
Oh gosh, elevator pitch. I haven't done one of those in a hot minute. Um,
Well, it doesn't need to be anything like perfect. Just a general sense of
yeah, no,
what it's
I get
about.
it. It's it started as a young adult sword and sorcery coming of age prophecy fantasy thing that ended up aging up as the books went along. So it is no longer young adult. Now it actually leans a little to the dark side. But yeah, basically it's your standard fantasy formula, but twisted around to kind of come back on an overarching theme of, well, themes of racism, and history always repeats itself. So yeah, that's I just masked it with some dragons and magic and elves.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when you say racism, in what context are you talking? Like, are you trying to speak on a form of racism that has existed, or are you handcrafting your own form of racism for the essence of the story?
I wasn't trying to speak on anything. It just sort of happened. But it's I'm not a plotter. I don't plot anything. I write off the seat of my pants and I write it in the order everybody reads it. So um it develops a life of its own after a certain point. But as far as like the racism goes, I deal a lot with slavery and indenture and things like that, and the like class divides and racial divides and that sort of thing. In my case, it's the elves who are enslaved and other races, minotaurs and things like that, that are enslaved um, more often than not. And it wasn't meant to be a commentary, but it kind of turned into one. So it's interesting. I'm not
I
really sure how to describe it.
It's all right. It's all right. Yeah,
It has a mind of its own.
I do think that those kind of ideas are probably the most powerful, is because like generally when you set out when a writer, or really anybody, like sets out to say a thing, I find that they put more effort into the fact that they're saying it than what it is that they're actually trying to say. And then
Hmm.
the people that are like, I just want to include this because it feels like a real aspect of history that I want to include into my world,
Hmm.
because if it's real in our world, it's likely real in theirs.
Yeah.
And then from that, just this organic conversation tends to arise. And I think that stuff hits better than the things that people are like, I want to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm not an overtly political person. Like, I'm not going to jump on a soapbox and campaign for anybody. That's not who I am. But at the same time, I have opinions and they do come out whether I intend them to or not. So, and it's that way with any writer. Anything you read is going to have some sort of personal perspective baked into it, even if it's not particularly obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Like, I don't know. For me personally, I don't like to. I feel like I actually like take real steps to avoid shilling a one-sided argument.
Hmm.
And in many cases, when I do write someone that seems to be doing that, I think I inadvertently also make them sound crazy. Because
That's
it's
fair.
like, I feel like if you are that confident about knowing like everything about a thing, then you're not really aware of what you don't know. And so
Hmm.
you kind of come off sounding like an idiot. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what you don't know. And it's
yeah.
that understanding that helps ground a character and ground an argument because nobody is perfect.
And
Doesn't
so,
matter how magical they are.
yeah, 100%. And I don't want to make this a political conversation. We're talking about fantasy and dragons and stuff. Um, so in the vein of that, let's get back to the story. I do want to kind of, if you could break down like what the story of, because you're currently still working on the Crimson Prophecy. I think you in your email mentioned you're somewhere like book 3 with it, maybe a little bit further.
Um, it's going to be a trilogy. Book 3 is drafted and currently with my betas.
So,
So
what is the story of the Crimson Prophecy? What is the Crimson Prophecy? How about that? Put
the
that on a
Crimson
shirt.
Prophecy. What is the Crimson Prophecy? Yeah, there you go. Get some merch going. Um, I don't even know at this point, but it's ballooned in a crazy way. But initially, it was there will be an elf with crimson hair that saves the rest of the elves, saves the race basically from obscurity, from slavery, from extinction, that sort of thing. Um, and it was like this niche, forgotten thing that was kind of woven into the background of it all, with the secret society that's protecting the prophecy, and they think it's this girl, and they're trying to make sure she doesn't get killed and all sorts of things like that. And that's where a bunch of what eventually becomes my main cast of characters come from, is dealing with that, or oh, we need a guide to get from here to there, and that sort of thing. So um, the first book is very much a Tolkien-esque point A to point B travel fantasy. Um, it begins with escaping a very thinly veiled Holocaust reference and running away, and then folds into the fantasy and the prophecy and the magic and learning the nature of it all and who she is, and having all of that pressure dropped on her shoulders. Um, Inara having the pressure dropped on her shoulders, and then learning how to deal with that and growing, like finding the problem, realizing there is a villain, and figuring out what to do about it.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So what elements do you think like originally captured your audience with the first book, and then you've released the second, and you're working on the
Mhm.
third? Like what new elements do you think in the new book is going to capture?
I think it's just the development. It matures as it goes, which with you know initially in the first book, Inara is 15. By the end of book 3, she's 26. Well, not counting the epilogue. So it matures as it goes, and a lot of things adjust, perspectives change, opinions change, people change. So things happen. It's a development. It's really a character story more than anything. It's a character driven story. So I'm drawn to characters when I read something. That's what I like to write.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you that. Like, what do you kind of lean on more? Is like good plot with like, I don't want to say, every time I ask this question, it does sound like I'm kind of being like, well, do you care about interesting plot or characters? And I'm not. I'm like, when you're writing, do you put more focus on like the plot being integral and the characters are kind of just a vehicle for the plot, which isn't a bad way to write. It's just a style. Or do you care more about like, do you kind of focus in on the characters and the plot just becomes like a setting for you to learn who they are and how they handle things?
So, like I said, I do not plot anything. I have no outlines, nothing more than a vague idea of where I want to end up. And getting from point A to point B is most of the battle, and the characters inform how that goes.
Yeah.
So, more often than not, they're the ones telling me what happens next. So, they'll get into a situation, say one of my characters gets into a fight, and it Okay, it doesn't go so well. What now? They're hurt, they're injured, they're upset, they're pissed off, they want revenge, they whatever. And the characters inform where the story goes.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying, telling Sean that at least in the first book, you were like rolling dice to make determinations.
Yeah. If I couldn't decide, yeah, like I'm like, well, I could go this way or that way. Which one is it? I don't know.
And were you
I
just
have
slapping
good
like a
ideas for both.
were you slapping like a regular old DC 10 on it and just kind of seeing what happens, or were you
I
like
was usually rolling
creating?
percentages,
Okay,
giving myself a 50-50, or, breaking it up into however many options. You got that fork in the path, which way do you go? So,
that's interesting. That's interesting.
yeah, I keep a set of dice literally right here for that exact reason.
Maybe I
So,
should start doing that. Um, I don't want to get into the nerd stuff just yet, but you did. You we talked about 10 levels down. It was a novella. It was a science fiction, if I believe, right? Science fiction
game
novel.
lit.
Oh, Gamelit. And that was inspired by Ready Player One and Two and The Matrix.
Hmm.
You kind of want to wrap my head around that one a little bit.
Um, that was, like I said, it was written in a month or less than a month. It was part of the Derby. I had a tight time frame, that sort of thing. So I was severely blocked on book three. And one of my friends was doing the Derby, and she goes, "You should do this too." It's like, maybe it'll get you unblocked. It'll get you doing something, because I was pretty depressed about it. And I decided, okay, yeah, sure, why not? So I got my cover, and it was this like young-ish guy in robes and a hood with a big axe standing in front of a portal. And my brain immediately went to some sort of combat trial. It went to like the oh, what do they call it? The cave with all the levels in all the Zelda games. It has a name. I can't think of what it is, but that's what came to my mind. So that's kind of where I went with it. And I'd been wanting to do a gamelet for a little bit, so I just rolled with it. The whole thing's in a VR world, and he's going there to make money to be able to escape from the bowels of the mega city. Standard cyberpunk kind of stuff.
Mm.
But I had a lot of fun with it, and ended up doing a bunch of artwork for it, and will eventually be doing an expanded full novel length art book edition of it
Oh, that's cool.
eventually.
Do you ever think? Because I know we talked a little bit before about you being into tabletop, but you haven't done that like recently. Do you think like maybe this might be like a world for you to kind of explore those
Oh,
cyberpunk
absolutely.
tabletop games?
Absolutely.
That'd be fun.
100%. Yeah.
Have you ever played one before?
No. I've toyed with the idea. I've talked to some friends, but I haven't actually done it yet.
Well, that'd be fun. I did want to talk to you about Inkboard because I've never done a derby or any of these lit contests that pop up every once in a while. I was just kind of curious about your experience. Like how what was your takeaway from it? How difficult do you feel like it was?
Yeah, it was absolutely fun. It was a ton of fun. I had a blast. I haven't done it again simply because my summers have gotten busy and I missed the deadline. Uh, the last 2 years since I did that. But it is absolutely a ton of fun. You meet some cool people. You get to read a ton of really cool stuff, and all of the books publish on the same day.
Oh wow!
So when I did it, I think it ended up being like 40 or 50 books that dropped on the same day. And some of them were, novella length or shorter. The minimum is 10,000 words. So it could just be a short story. But the sky's the limit. We had some people that dropped 90,000, 110, 130,000 word books. And it was
In a
absolutely
month?
ridiculous. You had, I think it was a month to write, and then a couple of weeks to edit and revise after betas. and you had one assigned beta reader where you did basically a swap with somebody. They just told you who you were doing it with and sent you their stuff.
That's insane.
And then it was voluntary after that. You could read as many betas as you wanted to in that, 2 weeks or however long it was. I don't remember exactly. But it was an absolute blast to see where people, because, you get a cover and a title. You're not allowed to use your real name. You're not allowed to use your follower base. You're not allowed to do any of that. You have to start from nothing. So it was a lot of fun. Everybody had, ghost profiles on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and wherever. And um, you're literally going from nothing. And it was a lot of fun.
Maybe I should try to convince Sean to do that with me when you're
Yeah, it'd
just
be
chilling
fun.
there.
It's a good way to get out of your wheelhouse too, because they start with 100 book covers, and you get to pick like your top 10, and then you get one of them, assuming no one else has them. So, um, yeah, and it's everything from standard fantasy to sci-fi to romance, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, there's some really cool at this point series that have come out of that. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
it's fun.
That kind of leads me into my next question regarding your other series, which is the Writers Workshop.
Mhm.
You want to kind of explain that? What is that? I believe you described it as a instructional series.
I wouldn't say instructional so much as, well, maybe instructional is the term because my mind just went blank.
Well,
Um,
we're gonna use it
I'm
now.
not. It'll work. It'll
Yeah.
close enough. Um, so that was another product of being blocked and bored. So I wanted something to do. I run a world building podcast with a friend of mine, and that leads into a lot of interesting questions. And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, how do you decide? How do you know? How do you know it's a good idea? And that sort of thing. So I started writing down the answers that I would give people over time. And it ended up getting turned. I went back and reformatted and reworded some things and turned it into the little 3-book series that I have. They're not particularly long, but there's one on world building, one on building characters, and one on like the common tropes and how to use them
Hmm.
and how not to use them.
I like that kind of.
So
I'll definitely look into that because I do like reading that kind of stuff. I like to
yeah,
absorb, knowledge when it comes
they're
to
short.
writing.
They're not particularly long, but I wanted them to be accessible for somebody who's just getting into writing or a new DM who doesn't know how to craft a world or craft a story or what the little details you need to grab and pull in, like rivers flow downhill and have to go somewhere. They can't just start and end in the middle of a continent, that sort of thing.
If you say so.
I mean, I appreciate a certain level of realism.
I actually like I created not to go on a little tangent of my own stuff, but I got so sick and tired, excuse me, of people levying that advice of like, well, rivers go downhill and all
Hmm.
that stuff, and I'm like, they don't have to. They do in reality in our world.
Hmm.
So I created a section. I created basically the world I created is the aftermath of a great and powerful wizard war that essentially like broke reality and the laws of physics. And so like for the most part everything kind of operates the same, but like
Hmm.
regions kind of differ, climates where
That's
like you
awesome.
could like almost step over the border and you're like, oh, I'm in the desert, oh, I'm in the Arctic. And then there's
Yeah.
like this chasm of mountainous terrain that's just like broken apart and floating, and it's like connected
Hmm.
with electric and stuff like that, and then like whirlpools go in whatever directions they feel like going into, and
That's
water
cool.
flows uphill because of it. And I'm just like, yeah,
I did
so
some of that. I did some of that with 10 levels because it's a video game world.
yeah.
And I took the idea of a video game map where, oh, there's snow here and desert here and they touch. That kind of thing. And just kind of went with it. So yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm just one of those guys. I'm a nerd. I'm a science nerd, a history nerd. I like things to be grounded in something relatable for the most part.
Yeah, and for the 90% of the time, I agree. I agree with you. Like, if you're trying to create some, I mean, in effect, what we're saying, if you're not breaking rules on purpose for a reason, these are
Hmm.
the rules. Stick to them. It makes more
Yeah,
sense. But if you're doing it for a reason and it's showcasing your work, then yeah,
exactly.
break
Yeah,
whatever you want
yeah. Rules are meant to be broken. It's just choosing when to break them.
and explaining why they're broken.
Exactly.
Don't just do stuff.
Yeah. So I basically I made it not necessarily going back to the books. I made them not just for writers, but for storytellers of any kind. If you're making a video game world or writing a book or creating a world for a tabletop game or whatever, it's just really kind of loose foundational. This is where you start.
Yeah.
So, and then
Yeah.
take it and run with it. Go wherever the hell you want with it. I don't care.
Yeah, I think Brandon Sanderson has a great quote regarding that, where it's just like you can't you can't really toy with the things until you understand like their purpose.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's only once you understand why we do the things that you can start messing with why you do them or don't do
Mm-hmm.
them,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes sense. But yeah, it's like readers are smart. They're smart enough to figure out that you've done something. They're not
Mm-hmm.
exactly going to be smart enough to understand why you chose to do that thing
Mm-hmm.
unless you explain it. So,
Right. And that's why I called the book The Foundation of Story. It's what you build upon.
yeah, I'm
So,
definitely
yeah.
interested. I'll definitely take a look at them. It kind of opens it up a little bit. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
fantasy, we're talking about writing. We both do tabletop. I'm a
Yeah.
huge nerd. Um, so I guess I will ask, what is your favorite class to play versus what is your favorite class type to write?
Class type to write. Oh boy. So typically, this is going to be the most generic answer ever.
Okay.
I play a I play a ranger,
Okay.
um, generally, or that sort of type. Um, Largely because my D&D character is a highly modified version of one of the characters from my books. Um, but that's just the type he is. He's a hang out in the woods with a bow kind of guy. And I'm down with that. I'm a hang out in the woods with a bow kind of guy. So, you know,
Yeah.
it works for me. Everybody's like, "Oh, rangers are so generic. Just play a fighter or whatever." I'm like, I like the ranger,
I think the
but
Ranger is a great class,
yeah.
especially from a storytelling perspective. I mean, well, one,
Mm-hmm.
if we can get nerdy here, one, the Ranger is by design um, more suitable for storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's the features of the class aren't really focused on combat as much as it is
Exactly.
like how you can help the group solve problems and stuff.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
it's a great class. I did kind of want to. I mean, I don't know how open into it you are, but do you feel like fantasy is kind of like on the rise again? I know tabletops gotten very popular, especially with shows like Critical Role and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've had a lot of big fantasy shows being produced. I will
Yeah.
not say the Tolkien show that has been bastardized, but
Yeah.
um,
No,
yeah. But I mean, Wheel of Time. I feel
eh,
like they did decent with
they tried.
with yeah they're trying they tried pretty good. And yeah, I feel like there's just kind of like more of an acceptance or a willingness to consume that kind of material now than there used to be, especially when I was growing up. There was like no fantasy shows.
Hmm, that's a hot take. Um, I don't know how hot I want my take to be.
You make it as hot as you want. If it's too hot, we'll edit it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, okay, so the current state of fantasy is both encouraging and deplorable.
Oh. Hot take. Okay.
Yeah. I love fantasy. I have loved fantasy since I was a kid. I was reading Tolkien in the first grade. That is the kind of person I am. I read almost exclusively fantasy, and I write a lot of fantasy. Even when I try not to write fantasy, it turns into fantasy. So I love it, but the market is severely oversaturated with garbage.
Mm.
And most of what's popular falls into that category.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
that's
blame
unfortunate.
a certain Pacific Northwest dark romance series for it.
Which one is that?
Twilight.
Oh, yeah, I knew you were gonna say it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I can agree with you on that end. I'm
Not
not a
not
fan of the,
entire.
I'm not a
That's
fan
not
of the
the
Twilight
only
series,
cause,
but I
but
do feel like it opened up. I feel like romance fantasy isn't really fantasy. I feel like it needs its own category.
romantasy.
Eh, no,
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 I hate it.
that almost
I hate it.
sounded cool.
No,
I don't want to call it
no,
that.
mm-mm, no.
Um, yeah, it's its own creature. Yeah, I'm of the mindset. It's just like I feel like there used to be a language for fantasy writing, and now it's
Yeah.
become very modern. And it's like you guys, I don't even think you're like setting a tone. I'll give you a great example, and it's something I try to emulate in any type of fantasy setting I'm doing, or any kind of fantasy writing I'm doing. There is a very, it's like two sentences, and it's so profound, and it captures the essence of what it is you're about to experience. And that's the beginning of Conan the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
when you got that voiceover and he's talking about when the seas of Atlantis, all that stuff, and you're
Oh
just
yeah.
like, yes, I'm sitting down and I'm gonna be in this experience. And it just puts you there, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. It's just a
Yep.
very, like, poignant writing of a
Mm-hmm.
language that is not of our time. And that is missing in a lot of fantasy nowadays. And I feel like it just kind of makes it weaker with it not there.
A lot of people would call that inaccessible now
Really. Wow.
because it's not written on an eighth grade level and intended for the masses.
I mean, you kind of just made me sad.
I told you the
Wow.
state of fantasy is both encouraging and deplorable. I wasn't kidding.
Well, I mean, if you kind of, I mean, you could, the problem is I think the thing that made me sad is you can kind of take that statement and just kind of push it onto everything that's being written right now. It's like, well,
It's true.
yeah, if you
It's
use
true.
words longer than 6 letters, eh.
You got those SAT words, man. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And there are writers out there who aren't doing that. I like to
Yes,
consider myself among them. I like to consider some of my friends among them. And there's some truly amazing work coming out that doesn't fit the mold.
yeah, and I don't want to I don't want to set this on some kind of tone that this is just how we feel like all authors are doing right now.
Yeah.
I think it's more or less we're just seeing like this pattern kind of emerge,
Mm-hmm.
and these authors are gaining some success, and it just doesn't feel like you're strengthening the genre. It feels like you
Yeah.
might be kind of like mishandling it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
yeah, I don't want to point fingers at anybody in regards to that, because the problem is writers write writers are told so often to write what sells,
mm-hmm.
and if what sells is simpler dialogue, is um, a generally kinder tone of speech, and the words you're using are smaller, then that's what
Yeah.
writers are going to do, because we're all looking for success. I just don't get into that. I'm of the mindset that we should all be striving to make a mark. You know, I feel like if you're a writer and you're putting your stuff out there for publication. Of course, you can just write and have your own, like, this
Mm-hmm.
is for me, and it goes on my shelf, and no one else sees it unless I
Mm-hmm.
show it to them. That's fine, 100%. You do you. But if you're writing out there and you're trying to market your work, and you're trying to say to the world, hey, I have something to say, I'm putting it down on paper, I want you to pay for it, then your end goal in life should be, I want people to remember my name 100 years from now. I want, when the nukes hit and blow everything to dust, they find a burnt book with my name on it, and they flip through 90% of the pages because 10% have just been burned away, and they fall in
Mm-hmm.
love with it, potentially create a religion based on the words I wrote, thinking that it was a factual accounting of history.
Oh yeah.
That's the reality. I think every writer should be kind of like wanting out of life.
What happens in 10,000 years when the archaeologists find all this fairy smut?
They're gonna think we were into some weird shit and that fairies existed.
To be fair, we are into some weird shit,
Yeah,
but still.
yeah. They're gonna be like, fairies existed, and there was a
They
sex
were all
trade.
7 feet tall and hotter than hell. Yeah, it's. I
Uh,
agree with you.
yeah,
All that to say, I agree with you. There's a lot of good things happening in fantasy, and there's a lot of things that started out good and went downhill. But at the same time, it has made the genre more accessible and more mainstream, but I'm not convinced that's a good thing.
yeah. I'm not. Well, I'm not convinced to the extent that it's become that it's a good thing. I do think that accessibility and mainstreamness, when done in moderation, with the idea of trying to still capture, like Sean and I had this conversation because I've written, I'm currently still working on it because of these reasons, but I've written a epic fantasy called A Path and Hero, where the narrator is this very bard type character, so the language is all very flowery. He gets
Hmm.
lost in his own thoughts and gets distracted from the story and all this stuff, and he uses these $20 words. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's very inaccessible. And the idea I'm having when I'm reading this, even Sean will tell you that it's hard to read. It's a very
Hmm.
hard book to read, but Sean is of the belief that's not a bad thing, and I'm of the belief that I can find the middle ground.
Yeah.
That I want to still capture that essence. I still want it to be a challenge to read, but I don't want you to feel like you need a college education. So there's got to be some way to kind of balance that in.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, if you go into what's considered classic fantasy, Tolkien, Lewis, things like that, even getting into sci-fi, some of the original stuff that formed the genre. Now, yeah, it's freaking hard to read. They take 10 words when they could use 2, but they do it so beautifully. And that's the difference in my opinion. Like, okay, yeah, Tolkien's not for everybody. That's why audiobooks exist.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like, that is the foundation of the genre that we know and love, and it needs to be appreciated, but I feel like it's been forgotten in
yeah,
a lot of ways.
I can get behind that. And I
Yeah.
think I think my argument ultimately is, like you said, they use 10 words when it could use two,
Hmm.
but you could kind of eke it out with seven. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, you can
make it
find the middle
beautiful.
ground.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, like one of my favorite examples is, I'm pretty sure it's in Fellowship of the Ring. They first get to Lothlorien, and Tolkien spends freaking, I think it's 10 or 12 pages, depending on the edition, describing a leaf. One leaf.
I remember. Oh, what was it? It wasn't The Hobbit. I think it was. I think it was Lord of the Rings, where there was he was describing them like a marching in some fashion, and
Hmm.
he spent a solid page just talking about the grass, and I was
Yeah.
just like, this, though beautiful, I cannot do. I do not. I do not have, as a
This is
writer, I
excessive.
don't have the attention span to stay
This is
on
very
grass.
excessive.
Yeah. Yeah. So like
Yeah,
he set the bar very high in regards to
he
like
did. He
what
did. He was an
fantasy
absolute
should.
master of language,
Yeah,
and it shows.
yeah, but you don't.
Um,
No one's asking for that. In fact,
no,
I don't think anyone
no,
wants it anymore.
no, no.
But to preserve what he was doing, a
Exactly.
little bit of that,
There
half
has
a
to be a middle
page.
ground.
Yeah, half a
If
page.
if you take if you take Lord of the Rings or something of that ilk and boil it down to, a seventh or eighth grade reading level, which is the recommended target for the current market, you're going to have half the book and nobody's going to read it because it's going to sound stupid. So, like, oh, they walked some more. Hey, look, elves. They walked some more. Hey, look, orcs.
Yeah.
And because that's really all Lord of the Rings is, but it's so beautifully done that it's a classic.
Well, I mean, I think the way he did it in many regards is almost bordering on poetic. Like he's
Yes,
not,
absolutely.
yeah, he's not like rhyming or anything, but there's a natural flow to it where you just
Yes.
feel like you're observing something important because
Hmm.
when he was writing, he was lending importance to the thing he was talking about. I mean,
Yes.
how else? The fact that he spent so long in your account to
Hmm.
describe a leaf,
Hmm.
whether that leaf actually had importance to the story or not, you walked away with the sense that this leaf or the fact that he was describing it in such length meant something, and so it
Hmm.
cues you in to pay attention to the thing you're reading.
Yeah,
And that is
absolutely.
missing. Yeah, that is definitely
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to cut this short.
No, we
Um,
could ramble all day.
yeah,
That's
because
fine.
we could talk till we're blue in the face.
Nerds will be nerds.
100%. Um, I do think we kind of ran out of some time here. I would definitely love to have you back on, especially if you got something else coming out the pipeline. If you
Yeah.
guys, have read any of his stuff or you want to look into it, you can find him on Facebook and TikTok at D Hall Author. You can find him on Instagram and Threads at author underscore Derrick underscore Hall. Sorry if I messed that up. I do
You
want to
got it.
let everybody know on Facebook we do create writing prompts every Tuesday. We call them Telletales. It's a real simple thing. I find an image, some picture, whether it be fantasy, sci-fi, some image. I look at it. I see a story. I write that story. I encourage our community to do the same in the comments. Put the story that you see in the image in the comments. I'm fascinated to read them. I invite Derek to participate in them if he sees one that kind of catches his eye and wants to throw down a
Yeah,
story.
absolutely.
We're also kind of opening up this Duncan segment. So if you guys have any questions or you feel like you're stuck in a rut or you're just kind of like wondering how to get onto the next stage of your publication process or whatever you're doing with your book and you have some questions regarding that, send us an email. We'd either love to have you on the show to discuss those things or we'll just read them on the show and kind of give you a quick answer that way. There should be a guidelines pinned to our page. Keep an eye out on our Facebook for any major announcements such as new episodes or, like I said, the Telletales, Dear Duncan episodes, stuff like that. I do want to take a moment to ask you guys if you guys have a twist or trope or type of character you've always wanted to explore in either a tabletop setting or in your own writing, but you've never had the chance to, I want you to guys go in the comments. Tell us what it is that intrigued you so much about that idea, and if you've read some of Derek's stuff, or you have some thoughts you want to share on it, or you have any questions that you might want to ask him, throw it in the comments. Throw us a like, and if you want to support us and the authors that come on and interview with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Derek, is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Not really, other than to just say keep at it. If you're writing something, don't stop.
Hmm? As I would
That's
say, semper scribe.
There you go. There you go.
All
Or
right.
as I would say, wing it like an author.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Let's go ahead and fade to black.